Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Iconic Dollcast. My name is Sage, your host. Welcome to another episode all about dolls. Thank you so much for listening. Today, I have Brooke on the show, and we are talking Barbie. Brooke runs the Instagram account Barbie Boulevardier, and Brooke is joining us all the way from Australia, which is iconic. We're going to talk all about Brooke's doll journey, which has led to a fantastic Barbie collection and some amazing custom Barbie designs. We're also going to talk about some of the very highs and sometimes lows and frustrations that come from custom designing. You know, I get asked all the time which Britney doll is the most difficult to make, and I don't really know if I totally have an answer for that. There's definitely some that are more difficult and take more time, but I've done them so many times at this point that I wouldn't totally call them difficult. I don't know. There's just so many things that you learn from custom designing, and I think Brooke and I really get into that today. We also talk about, inbox versus out-of-box collectors, our favorite Barbie eras, anything you can think of regarding Barbie. So we're going to jump right into it. As always, please follow me on Instagram at iconicdollcast or Britney Spears Custom Dolls. Please follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls. And here is my interview with Brooke all about Barbie. All right, everyone. Today I have Brooke on the show, and Brooke is a big Barbie fan, collector, designer, and fantastic Barbie photographer. And Brooke is joining us all the way from Australia, which is crazy. Brooke, thanks so much for being on the show. Before we get into all things Barbie, tell me and my listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, I am a 40-something-year-old Barbie collector. I studied fashion design at UTS back in the early 2000s, and I've worked in the fashion industry ever since. And I'm currently a designer / pattern maker for a bridal label here in Sydney. And yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I've always had an interest in fashion, and being able to do this like Barbie account is my way of communicating my creativity rather than using my skills and whatnot to communicate someone else's vision. Yeah.
That's amazing. And obviously a big part of Barbie is fashion, so it's totally understandable why you would be into that. When would you say you first found yourself interested in Barbie?
I think I was always interested in Barbie. Very early on, I remember seeing... one of my like first memories is Barbie and the Rockers from 1986, the real dancing action ones, and I just remember wanting them so badly. I think that I know my first Barbie was a fashion play Barbie from 1985. We found her in a grocery store. She was $6 at the time, and I was just out of kindergarten, or I was in year 1 or something. So money didn't really mean much to me. And I had this little coin purse and I had 6 coins in it. And I was like, oh, I've got enough for this. I had 6 cents or 8 cents or something like that. And my mom trying to explain to me, she's like, no, you don't have $6. And I remember being besotted with this doll, this little tower of her and her like purple hostess dress with lace trim. And yeah, we left the store without her that day. And then a couple of weeks later, I came home from school, and on the coffee table, wrapped in purple and silver striped paper, was this parcel. And I opened it, and it was Fashion Play Barbie, and it was just on after that. Like I just loved Barbie so much. She and I had like lots of adventures together. So that's sort of
where
how
it all began.
It's where it all began. I just remember being like really obsessed with her tiny white pumps.
Oh yeah.
She had like the skinny heels. And this little belt that was like a heart shape that interlocked at the front. It was really incredible. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Of course. And you know what's so funny to me is that a lot of people's first Barbie came from the grocery store. And I don't think mine was from the grocery store, but I remember getting Barbies at the grocery store, which is I think a lot of grocery stores, at least in the States now, are really upgrading. So they look more like Targets and Walmarts.
Hmm.
So Barbie is
Yeah.
definitely back in the grocery store, but it's not something that was like super common for a while. It was when I was a kid, and then that kind of went away. But now, I mean, I just can't go anywhere that doesn't have Barbies. So even when I go to the grocery store, it's like, oh, gotta stop by the Barbie aisle, of course. Obviously, that kicked things off, and like you're a
Hmm.
massive Barbie collector now. And I always try to
Hmm.
ask when I talk to content creators who do focus on Barbie,
Hmm.
which Barbie era resonates the most with you?
My focus for my collection, and I've just got to preface this by saying that I've got two things. So I have what I classify as my collection, then I've got like my Instagram account collection. So my core collection is 1985 to 1992 superstar face mold music themed Barbies and friends. It's very important for me to have all of the friends because I like the entire set. And I have a real soft spot for the Benetton dolls. So she's one where I've got like the 1990 version, and then I've got the 1991 Benetton Shopping, which normally I wouldn't have the 1991 version because it has the 90s logo on it instead of the 80s, 70s, late 70s, early 80s curly Q logo. But I just find the fashion on the Benetton dolls so incredible, and the high color faces. But I've made an exception, so that's kind of my collection. And then my Instagram account started with me buying the 1990 Benetton dolls, and I was like, I'm going to be fine with just these five because it's a mix of ethnicities. Everyone will be represented. And then the more I got into it, and I noticed that there were so many different facial sculpts, the more I was like, oh, I really want, I want a Shani, and I want an Astra, and I want some more Steffies, and I want them in different skin tones. And so it just kind of exploded from there for my Instagram account because I wanted an entire cast of characters that people could kind of see themselves in. And I really got to appreciate the beauty of just how different Barbie was in that time when we when we do think of Barbie from the 80s, it's always a blonde girl.
Right.
But there was quite a scope, I think. Admittedly, there weren't the quantities, but there was definitely diversity back then.
That brings me to, actually, you just brought up a few things that now I have even more questions for you. So my apologies. But the first thing I want to say is, one, how many Barbies do you think you have in your collection? Like, give me a guesstimate.
Boxed, I would say I've probably, like in my music themed collection and my Benettons, which are all in box, I've probably got about 30 in box, 30 to 35. And then my Instagram account, I've probably got 60 at
Amazing.
least.
And
Yeah.
then also, so you brought up Barbie's friends and how, there is a definite, there's a full cast of characters here. So outside of our typical blonde Barbie that we have
Mhm.
that everyone knows, who would you say is your favorite friend of Barbie?
Oh, okay. I've got two answers for this. My favorite friend, if you'd asked me this in the 90s when I was still a child or a teenager, it would have been Teresa, hands down. But I think Christy's my actual favorite. Christy's just so fantastic.
She is.
She's 100% the best friend.
Oh yeah.
She
Oh yeah.
she deserves her own line. She's just got this like warm, open smile. She's so friendly. She's just this approachable beauty. Everything that you put her in just looks incredible. Yeah, and she is actually always there for Barbie. I feel like she's one of the most represented characters in the late 80s, early 90s. Actually, even probably going up to the 2000s. I don't really know after that because it kind of drop off.
And so I love the Christie mold that they used in the late 80s through the early 90s. It's my favorite. I know that right now Mattel is bringing a lot of things back, and I'm just waiting for them to put out at least, a couple Playline dolls that are going to utilize that face mold because it is so gorgeous. It's my absolute favorite. I too love Christie. I think, like you said, she does literally any color you put on a Christie doll, like it just pops way better than Barbie. And I love that face mold, and I love, I've talked about this before, but a lot of the times, they're known as like Black Barbie, but they still are
Mhm.
using that Christy face mold. I always call her Christy.
Yeah.
She's amazing, beautiful. I love that. And I love Teresa too. And I don't think she gets a lot of love. I think when I ask this question, most people go with Christy because duh. I've got a couple
Mhm.
midges. Someone said PJ once, and I was like, that's a good answer. Like, no one said that,
Yeah.
but we haven't really ever dived into Teresa. Those are some really great choices. Now, I want to move in. Oh, you also brought up something about logos and stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm sensing that you are a very specific Barbie collector. So let's say you're out and you're looking for Barbies, or you're online looking for Barbies. Tell me what you're looking for.
This is going to be a really hard question because I'm kind of at the end of my collecting career. I think there are only a few things that I'm out looking for at the moment, and I'm not going to say what they are because I don't want the eBay prices to go up.
Right. And that will happen.
That will happen. But generally, what I'm looking for, I do like to buy things that are new in the box, even if I am going to unbox them. It's only recently that I have bought some dolls that are out of the box, and I feel confident enough in kind of restoring them or bringing them back to life. Basically, it would be an interesting face sculpt or a sculpt skin color combination that I haven't seen before. One that I am sort of on the lookout for is I think it's a 1998 Avon representative Barbie. She uses the Nichelle face sculpt, and she has sort of like a short natural haircut with a Chanel-esque kind of suit. And I mean, one of the reasons why I'm looking for her is because she's hard to get in Australia, or I think she's hard to get in Australia. There's plenty of the white one, but the African American, not so much. And I think, well, another one of the reasons why I want her is because I find that she's an interesting combination of screening. Generally, they don't do a lot of dolls with a short haircut.
Right.
Especially not one that's done incredibly well. And I think that Avon 1998 one is just chef's kiss. That answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And like, I mean, also you notice things like box variants and logo variants and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So that's
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah.
important to your collecting style, I assume.
Oh, actually, yeah. One thing I can tell you about. So this is the kind of collector that I am when I was collecting for my box collection. The 1985 rockers have a couple of different box variants. So they all come in a classic kind of black box, but then there's a black box and the rockers logo is in sort of like a rainbow gradient color that runs across the box. And then some of those have a black liner with the stage lights kind of printed on the back. And then there are other ones that have the black box, but the Rockers logo is in pink, or it could be in yellow. And then sometimes those will have a hot pink or a neon yellow liner that is kind of plain, or it's an orange. When I was collecting that 1985 Rockers, I had to make sure that every single one had the black box with the rainbow gradient font with the stage lights in the back. I could not handle having ones that had, the other variants.
Right.
So,
Well, guys, this is a true Barbie collector right here, because this is stuff that most people would not notice or care for, but that's the fine details that really make some Barbie collectors really stand out to me. So that's amazing. But I wanted to ask you, you just kind of mentioned it. So obviously you are in Australia, and
mhm.
as an Australian collector, is it more difficult to find Barbies? Like like, let's talk about your peak in collecting. Like, was it more difficult to get some of these, and what kind of things did you have to do to obtain some of the Barbies that you have?
My peak in collecting, when I was buying everything, I was pretty much buying everything off of eBay and getting it sent from America. It was very rare for me to find anything in Australia that I wanted, because I think as collectors here, everyone just kind of like clutches, like holds on to what they have until they're ready to completely downsize their collection. And probably 10 years ago, when I was really on the hunt for a lot of these things, everyone was holding on to them. But then also, the flip side of that was 10 years ago on eBay, the prices, while they were high, they weren't that bad. So I was able to get things at a price that I wanted to pay for them. But now, because I'm at the end of my collecting cycle, and the things that I'm looking for are are a lot more niche. Yeah, eBay is pretty much my best friend. eBay and the people in my doll collecting community. Like I've got so many great friends who are actually looking out for me in the States, who find things for me. And sometimes I'll wake up and there'll be a little message being like, you know, you'll never guess what I got for you. Or, you know, I'm at Sherry's doll show and I found this, you know, do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, go back, go back, please go back. So it is hard. I mean, in terms of retail here in Australia, we don't get half of what you guys get in America. We get a lot of the fashionista dolls. We get a lot of the made to moves. That's one thing I'm actually really grateful for, is we'll get the made to moves before you guys do for some reason. We'll get some of the play sets, but in terms of getting the fashions, it's pretty barren here. You're basically buying a doll to get the fashion currently. Right. So that's it. So when I do go to America, I buy everything.
You got to bring a separate suitcase for that.
I'm sure. Spare.
Of course. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about your custom designing. You do a lot of costume designing, and like all of the stuff on your Instagram is stuff that you have made yourself. So tell me about how you got into all of that.
So that's kind of, it would go back to my like Instagram origin story, which would be, again, it was probably 10 years ago, even though I wasn't posting on Instagram. I came across an account called Oh That 80s Boy, which I'm sure you know of. I'm sure lots of people know of him, because he was doing the most incredible rockers photography and creating little storylines, and his styling was impeccable. And it was like someone had reached into my brain and pulled out the best parts of it. And I had so many friends email me as well who were not Barbie collectors, being like, this just feels like you. Like, why aren't you doing this? You know, why aren't you photographing? Like, you know, you can draw, you can write, you can do all of these things. Like, you really need to be doing something to get yourself out there on Instagram. And because I am the kind of person that I am, it did take me forever to kind of get to that point. So in 2018, one of my best friends had a little girl, and she was like, I wanted to get her Barbie, and she was walking down the Barbie aisle, and she was like, where's all the glamour? You know, it just looks like she shops at Forever 21. You know, it's very down market. You know, where are the peaches and cream? Where are the dream glows? Where are the, you know, all of this like high fashion stuff? She's like, you know, where's the glamour? And I was like, oh, don't worry, I've got you. I can do this for you. And so I went and I bought myself a made to move Barbie, and I created some outfits for my friend's little girl, and she loved them. And that was sort of the impetus to be like, well, I can do this. I can do what these people are doing on Instagram. And so it was 2019. I gave myself a deadline of October 31st, 2020 to get myself one post up. And I did. I started off with like a labyrinth themed set of photos where I created Sarah's gown and Jareth's tuxedo from the As the World Falls Down part of that movie. And then I went into Heather's because I love Heather's. So I did that, and then I started connecting with people, and people were doing style challenges. So it's like, well, here's another way for me to showcase different outfits and my style on there. So I was doing that, and it all just kind of grew from there. So, and it's been a really fun journey. Thinking in such a small scale it forces you to be creative in different ways.
It does.
Working out like which seams are essential, and you know, how to get something to look like something when you can't make it that small, which you would know about doing Britney.
Yes, and thank God Britney's usually in like a leotard. And all she needs is a ton of rhinestones and glitter, and it can make it work. Because like, seriously, I've tried some other things because I don't know what I'm doing. Like, let me just be clear. Like, this is all, I did not go to fashion school. I had to teach myself how to do all of this. And fortunately, I think what works with Britney Spears is that most of her costumes were just kind of like an arts and craft project, and that was just
Yeah.
her style. I've tried some other things and I'm like, oh God, like this is too fancy. Like, I don't know how to do this. But
Yeah.
fortunately with Britney, and like, thank God I love her so much, that it's mostly just, like you said, I can take pretty much anything and sort of manipulate different fabrics or different crafts to make it
Mm-hmm.
look legit.
Yeah.
But it is I would have no idea how to make something for a human. Like I have no idea how that all works. But like you said, you're able to take a lot of creative freedom with such a small scale to make it work, which is really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, it's nothing compared to what you're doing. Again, like I said, most of Britney's
Mm.
costumes are just an arts and craft project, and that's what makes it fun. I try to make every single doll 100% unique, even if it's the same doll that I made like 5 days ago, whatever. And that's what's fun about the little scales, is because you can do that, because it doesn't really, in my opinion, like especially for Britney, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can tell what it is, like you've been successful. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I find it so interesting creating stuff for Barbie, and I think it's made me better at my job because it forces me to think about things in a completely different way. And a lot of the techniques that I am doing for Barbie, I can then translate to a real person's size, because I'm like, oh well, I know that shape will create this, or if I cut something on a specific grain line, it's going to fall this way. So I think, yeah, Barbie and my work has kind of gone hand in hand. It's
Yeah.
made me better.
Is there any like specific design you can think of off your head that has been your favorite, or that was the most like, yes, I did this, like super gratifying? Like,
Oh,
is there what's your favorite one?
that's like asking me to try and choose a favorite child.
I know, I know.
I, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think, okay, well, it's not my favorite, but it's definitely something I remember the most because it happened quite early on in my Instagram account. I was doing, so after I did Heather's and some of these like style challenges, I was like, you know what, let's do something that everyone loves. Let's do Pretty Woman. And so I did basically every iconic scene from Pretty Woman, including the outfit montage on Rodeo Drive. And one of the people who actually saw it was Marilyn Vance, who was the costume designer for Pretty Woman. And she reached out to me via DM and was like, I would really love one of these in my collection.
Oh,
Can you make one? And so I did. I did the white Chanel-esque strong shoulder. I guess you would call it a shift dress, with the buttons down the front, with the big black hat, and the gloves and the shopping bags. So I did that for her, and I sent that to LA, which was incredible. And yeah, it's pinned on my. It's the first post that you can see on my Instagram account, which is yeah, I think that's probably the best thing that I've ever done. It was definitely one of the most rewarding things for me creatively to kind of do at that time. So I'd say that's probably like the one thing that I would go to and definitely say, like, I remember this is something that I did, and I'm very proud of it.
yeah, it looks incredible. I did see that one. Just to talk a little bit more about custom designing, because it is challenging to do things in this scale. Can you think of one time that you were like, fuck, I don't know, like what are some of the obstacles you've come across in making something that you were like, let's just see how this goes.
I've got two. I can recall two instances. Well, there's more than two instances because people have actually ordered these outfits from me. I had a friend who wanted a creation of the modern and marvelous midge from the 2023 Barbie convention, which is a Bill Graining design, and it was one of a kind that was auctioned off for charity. And my friend is a really like heavy midge collector, and he was like, I would love this. I would love this look. And the amount of time it took for me to create these little underwire bust cups in satin fabric for this little crop top bustier thing that she's got with contrast top stitching on top. That kills me. It killed me. Like every time I tried to make it, there was always something that was just not perfect, and I'm such a perfectionist. So I think I made it probably about 5 times, and I messaged him and I was like, this is as good as it's going to get, and it's killing me that it's not the best. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is perfect. And then I had someone else reach out and be like, hey, can you make that for me too? And I was like, sure. And then I found myself in exactly the same boat, being like, how did I do this? Why am I doing this? You know, is this good enough to send to someone? And of course it was totally fine. And the other one that I have a lot of trouble with, which again, people really love, and I love it too. I love the look of it, but every time I make it, I have to make it about 3 or 4 times before I get one that's really good. Is this, back in summer of 2002, I went to the Gucci Gardens Archetypes exhibition, and I wanted all of my dolls to be photographed in each of the scenarios in a Gucci look. And I created this purple satin knot front high collar blouse with this sort of like, it's a knot and it kind of goes across the bust and under the armhole and wraps around to the back, and it's a long sleeve and it's very lovely. But every time I sew that, I can sew it perfectly, and then when I get to the back, I screw it up, and then I have to remake the entire thing. So so every time someone asks me for that, I'm just like, yeah, I'll do it, and then I'm in a world of pain.
You bring up something I can super relate to. Again, not that my shit is anywhere near the level that you're at. I mean, but Brittany is pretty basic, you know. But let me tell you, I have 2 Brittany designs that I have made as well that literally made me want to just throw every Barbie I own onto the floor and like cry. And I'll tell you, one of them, I don't know how familiar you are with Britney Spears, but one time she performed with Michael Jackson, and she's in this like I'm pretty sure it's Versace. It's like this green like flowy dress, but it's got like tiny little black rhinestones all over it, and at the top it looks like they dipped paint on her, so like the black just kind of like bleeds onto the green.
Yeah.
I decided to sometimes I'll just try things because I'm like, I need to be creative, and I hate doing the same. I don't hate it, but it is frustrating to make Britney Spears with the snake every couple of days, and I like to just try new things, right? And I must have tried this like 10 times, and then finally I got to a point where I was like, all right, well, this is it. Like I cannot do this anymore. Like I am wasting my time at this point. And to this day, just a few weeks ago, I was like, it's been a couple years since I did this, and I was never happy. It's probably the one Britney doll that I've ever shared that I was like, I don't want to share this. Like, this is like not whatever. A couple weeks ago, I was like, all right, we're going to try this again. It's been a couple years. I feel like my skills have improved, and like, let's try. Total disaster again. And I was like, fuck this. I am not doing this anymore. But on the flip side of that, there was another one. She did like this commercial for one of her perfumes, and she's like in all these like really fancy, like she's going through like different like eras, and she's like, I think she's like Cleopatra in one of them, and she's got all these like shiny gold like feathers coming off of her, but they're not like real feathers, and you can tell like they're definitely I don't know what material they're using on these costumes in real life, but anyway, so I got all these feathers and they were silver, and I was like, oh, they have to be gold, so I spray painted them gold, and it all started coming together really well. And then I was like, well, shit, like because they're like little charms, and I was like, well, shit, how am I gonna stick that? Like, how is this gonna stay in place? So I did end up having to like sew each one on. And while I was doing that, I didn't seal the paint. And all of it got all over me, and I like didn't notice. And then I like moved. Oh my God, this was a total disaster. I like had to turn her head, and all the paint got all over her head, and it was like spray paint, and it was I had been working on it for like 6 hours or something, and I just start over. But then I was like, all right, it's fine. And then, so that is one that was really a big struggle. Then she did turn out pretty cute, but like, there's always that one that you're like, oh God, I could have done so much better. But I also too, like, I get super hard on myself. And if it's not perfect, like I will completely start over. So that is
Yeah.
totally relatable. It's just because we're artists and that's, everything's
Mm,
got to look good. Otherwise, what's the point? But there are times where I have to
yeah.
be like, all right, just let it go, Sage. Like, this is fine. And like always, the
Mm,
people who are buying the dolls are like, no, she's amazing. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you think so. you know? And so do you
oh
take
my gosh.
commissions?
Not really. Not
Okay.
really. I find, I mean, I kind of am only interested in doing what I want to do. But if someone comes at me with a really interesting proposal that I think is right up my alley or in my lane, 100% I'm gonna do it. But yeah, it's usually just like a timing thing. I know I've got a customer at the moment who has been waiting since probably August last year for a couple of things that I've had on my Instagram account, which I haven't gotten to because I've been super busy with my Instagram account. I've had family come and stay with me. It's been a really tough time at work. It's been a really difficult season. And to top it all off, I'm also working on not only my stuff for American Barbie Convention, which is happening in June this year. I think I can tell you this without it being a breach of confidence, but I'm doing the dolls for the Australian convention in August, which is really incredible. But it's 100 outfits. So,
You've got your work cut
yeah.
out for you. Okay, okay.
Yeah. yeah.
Amazing. But what
So,
a cool thing to like. I mean, I know, I think a lot of people downplay how much hard work goes into some of this stuff because most people who are not in, let's say, our world, the doll collecting
yeah.
world, which is massive, but most people like that don't know me or who don't appreciate, they're like, why is this even like, why are you doing this? Like, this seems like
Yeah.
such a waste of time and whatever. And you're like, okay, but like that's huge. That's what an amazing
Yeah.
feeling. And also like, yes, it's gonna be a lot of hard work, but like so worth it, I'm sure.
I think it's going to be incredible. I know the stuff that I'm doing for the Australian convention is going to be great. Feedback that I've had from the committee is incredible, which is great. The stuff that I'm doing for American convention, it's going to be the first time that I've ever done room sales at a convention, and the theme for the Kentucky convention is icons. So I'm kind of designing stuff that's in theme with that. So hopefully I hope I'm going to sell out, which will be incredible. But if I don't, it's okay. And yeah, I mean, and then my plan for the rest of my Instagram account, because that's got to continue to chug along while I'm doing all of this other stuff. Plus doing stuff for my clients who are patiently waiting for things. Yeah, it's going to be a lot, but I think it will be good at the end of it. So
I love
yeah.
that. And so obviously you're very busy. So how do you keep up with all your content? Because for me, like
Mhm.
I get sometimes I'll be super super far ahead and then it's great, but then I take that for granted and suddenly I'm very 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 behind. So how do you keep up with all that?
At the moment, uh, because I had so much stuff on, I mean, so I have a plan in place. I try and plan a year in advance, just kind of give myself an outline of, this month I'm going to be doing this and that month I'm going to be doing that. And so at the moment, I should have been on my New Year's Eve posts, but I didn't have time to make outfits. So I had to scrap that and think, what do I have? What can I post? And so for January, I've been concentrating on the LOL OMG mall play sets because I love the mall, and shopping is life. So I've been posting them, and I was like, wouldn't that be a fun collaboration using like the Benetton dolls that I've got in their original outfits? And I'm like, it's still a lot of work, but it is easy because I'm not having to create the outfit because Benetton already has their outfits, and I've got all of the fashion packs, so I can kind of easily change up my setup and take a whole bunch of photographs and not have to think about it so much. So then that way I'll have time to create in the background. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally, totally. Those
Yeah.
LOL OMG dolls, it's so funny. I have one person who really likes to get custom Britneys on one of those. And it is so different working on that kind of body shape and mold for the Britneys, but they always turn out so cute. And it's definitely not like a doll line that I'm like obsessed with, but I do think it's so fun to try new things, right? And so I've had a really fun time working on some of those just because she's so curvy and like just the way things fit. I'm at the point with Britney where it's like sometimes with like my patterns, like I already know how to do it, you know, and just to switch it up a little bit like that has been really like interesting to me because I'm like, it's almost the same, but not exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Oh, it's so fun.
It is fun, and that's what this is all about. It's just fun. And so you do a lot of photography too for all of your content, and doll photography is something that I notoriously it's so stressful, and I'm sure it is the same way for you as a perfectionist where it's like if you cannot get the right shot, it's just like a total waste of time. And there's been so many times where I've been like, I got it. And then you know, sit down to start editing and I'm like, shit, like there's a piece of hair where it's not supposed to be and it totally throws me off, and then I have to go back and redo the whole shoot. And I'm not kidding you, like I have tens I think it's something like 19,000 photos on my phone right now, which is ridiculous. And it's all because I take like 100 of each doll until I get the right one, you know. So is that something you have to deal with as well?
100%. 100%. I've got so many photos of dolls on my phone. I've got more photos of dolls than I have of my actual life. Whenever I do sit down to do a shoot, I can guarantee it's a minimum of 3 hours because it's set up, takedown, working out what shots you want to get, how you want to pose them. There's always the threat that they're going to fall over and take everything with them. So yeah, when I do my shoots, when I do my planning for the month, I'll kind of work out how many days there are in the month and how many photographs or how many posts I want to do in that month. And I'll just write myself like, you know, January 13th, you know, Fountain Christy Teresa. And so that'll kind of give me a prompt of, okay, well, this is the setup that I want to do. What's my storyline that I want to convey if I want to do a story. And then I just kind of decide on the shots at the time, seeing what kind of imagining like, well, how are the dolls going to interact? What are they saying to me? And kind of photograph around that. I always have a minimum of 3 lights at any time. I have like a ring light in front, then I have one off to the left side and one off to the right side with the colored gel on them. And that's sort of like my basic setup. Like that's my formula. And I can thank the Dolly Llama for giving me that. She did a tutorial back in 2020 or 2021, which I think is still up on her Reels tab, showing how she lit her projects. And that was invaluable. That was such a good resource. So yeah, shout out to Lily.
Well, that's the best thing about doll community, right? It's like everyone, well, not everyone, for the most part, everyone's willing to help each other out, and it's really great because you can learn so much stuff just by going through someone's content. You'll find things that you never even thought of doing before, and I think that's what's really great about the doll collecting community. You can just anything you can think of, you can usually find from someone else, or lots of people do great, amazing tutorials, and it's really awesome. So obviously you've built a great account. You do all this amazing stuff. And I like to ask people who are pretty major content creators, do you, for someone listening who has not ever, who is thinking of maybe getting into doll customizing or photography or creating a doll account, what kind of tips do you have for them to get started in the whole social media presence or content creating of it all?
I would say my first tip is to just start. Don't wait. I feel like I don't use any sophisticated, like I use my iPhone, and I don't have a camera. So all my shots are on iPhone. Generally, I don't edit my photos. For me, it's all about lighting. And if you have this kind of like rule of 3 lighting where it's, you know, 1 in front and 2 in the back, you're always going to get a fairly decent shot. Yeah, and I would say just have fun posing your dolls. Get to know them, find out what what they're saying, like, what's your story, what's your angle, and yeah, just start.
Yeah,
Just start.
you just gotta go for it.
That's the biggest thing. This is the whole thing. Like, no one's going to be able to find you unless you start posting something. So if you're waiting for it to be perfect, it's never going to be perfect. You'll never start if you're waiting for everything to be in alignment. You can find yourself in the journey, which I think is, which is what a lot of us have done, right? So
oh yeah,
you quickly work out what is working for you, and yeah.
I look back on some of my very first custom Britney dolls. They're horrible, but it's like like you said, I had to start somewhere, right? You can't just be, you're not going to just get a bunch of people coming at, like, checking your stuff out unless you start. So that's very good advice.
Yeah, I think that's the best advice. I mean, and in terms of like doing customization, it's just a journey, and you've got to start somewhere. And there are so many. I mean, if anyone who's listening wants to get into sewing or pattern making or creating stuff for Barbie or any doll, there are so many communities, not just on Instagram but also on Facebook, where you can post your stuff and be like, this dart is sitting funny, or this waist isn't looking right. What can I do? And people will tell you, like, these are my tips and tricks. Avoid chiffon. Sew in polyester. Like, just things that you wouldn't know. Like, start small. Start creating. The most important thing is that you are creating. So, yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people, and part of the journey that we're talking about is experimenting with different fabrics. You'll learn. I mean, It took me forever to figure out. Obviously, what works best with Britney Spears is like stretchy material. That's because it's all got to be pretty tight, But I mean, when I first started, I had no idea about things that could go, like, how patterns have to be bigger if you're going to use this kind of material, whatever. And yeah, like you said, just go for it. Try it. I always tell people, just be yourself, be unique, do your own thing. I think people really resonate with something if they think it's an original idea, and most likely it is. And if you're really passionate about it, just go for it. I think that's definitely the best advice you could give anyone, for sure.
Yay.
Yeah. So, Brooke, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. This was so much fun. Can you please let everyone know where they can see all your amazing creations?
Oh, that's easy. I am at Barbie Boulevardier on Instagram. That is Barbie Boulevardier on Insta. That's where everything is. I do have an Etsy link, but I never have anything on it because Etsy fees suck. So,
of course they
just
do.
Just message me.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch. And I cannot wait to see what you pull out for the Barbie conventions. That's going to be amazing.
Yay. It's going to be fantastic. So yeah, you got the scoop.
Yes. Yay. Thank you so much, Brooke, for coming on the show. I had a blast. Make sure you guys check out Brooke's Instagram, Barbie Boulevardier. I think I said that right, hopefully. Anyways, I had a great time, Brooke. Thank you so much. Next week, y'all, we are discussing a true Hollywood legend. I'm not going to say much more other than the episode drops on this legend's birthday next week. So I'm very, very excited about that. Please, if you guys are enjoying the show, give me 5 stars. Leave me a nice review. It really helps. Follow me on all the things, and I will talk with you guys next time.